Hey, it's Jubal. You know what's bugging me this week? Taylor Frankie Paul. I never knew who that was until like a few weeks ago, but now I see it all over social media. People talking about it nonstop. If you don't know who Taylor Frankie Paul Lautner is, um, she is on the Secret Life of Mormon Wives or something like that. Never seen the show. I know it's a big hit, but I'm not exactly my speed. Um, and she was supposed to be this season's Bachelorette, but ABC canceled the Bachelorette after abuse allegations came out that ABC definitely knew about, and we're still probably hoping that nothing would really come to light and she would just be the next Bachelorette. But video surfaced of her actually abusing her boyfriend, which I guess also they have a toxic relationship. I don't know much about them. All I know is nobody deserves to be abused. And I don't care if you have a toxic relationship or not. If you're in a toxic relationship, by the way, I know it's very hard to leave it, but leave it and then figure out why you were there so that you never end up back there again. I've been in many toxic relationships. My part in it was always an enabler. So somebody would be abusive or act a way to me that I don't think somebody should act toward me. And I would give it a pass and say that it's okay and stay and enable the situation and make it even worse. And enabling is a form of emotional manipulation. It's a form of trying to control things by accepting everything instead of the actual loving thing to do. If you're talking about someone who's using drugs or something, a lot of people will be like, "Well, I love them, so they asked me to go get them it, so I got it for them." You're enabling it, and also that's not a very loving thing to do for someone that you care about. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to say no in a situation with somebody, or even when it comes to loving yourself. Enabling someone else's bad behavior or abusive behavior because you want to keep the peace is also not good for yourself, because you're not showing yourself any love by enabling that. Anyway, that's just a side note. But anyway, I guess they had like a toxic relationship, or they have a toxic relationship. But the point is, video surfaced of her abusing her boyfriend. She was choking him, kicking him, throwing stools at him, big metal stools. One of the stools actually hit her 8-year-old daughter in the head, according to police reports, and you can hear the daughter crying in the video. And the thing that's bugging me about it, like I said, there's a few things that bug me about it, but number one, after the video surfaced, I heard a ton of comments. I read a ton of comments with people saying things like, "Well, what did he do right before that?" I don't know what he did right before that. But the point is, she's physically abusing him. Nobody deserves to be physically abused. She wasn't protecting herself. She was an aggressor, and she was being aggressive. And some people give her a pass because she was drunk. No. I've been drunk many times in my life. I actually spent a lot of my life drunk. I started drinking at like 13, and I pretty much was blacked out a lot most of my life until, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And when I was real drunk and in relationships, never aggressive, never abusive, never trying to hit anybody. So that's not a pass. And if you're giving it a pass because that's what you do, hello, that's abuse. Doesn't matter if you're drunk or not. And then people were also saying things like, "Well, why is he videotaping her? Just to put it out there?" Maybe. I don't know the dude, right? But why is he videotaping her instead of stopping her? Hello? In the society that we live in, look what happened. Video came out of a woman physically abusing a dude. And everybody's like, "Well, what did he do? He must have done something." Maybe he did. But he didn't do something to deserve stools being thrown at him and being hit and kicked and choked, right? If the shoe was on the other foot and a woman posted a video of her dude doing that to her, drunk or not, highly doubt that a majority of people would be going, "Well, what did she do beforehand?" No, they wouldn't. It's the same thing. Abuse is still abuse, sucker, no matter how you slice it. So anyway, a lot of people were like, "Well, why did he videotape it?" instead of like stopping her, because you can't. Because also with our society's double standard on the way abuse works, as a male who has been in situations where you're being punched in the face by your significant other repeatedly, you know that you cannot do anything. You can't hold them down. You can't stop them from physically attacking you, because if you do, guess what? The police will show up if they're called, and they will say that you grabbed them or do whatever. There's a lot of fear in that. So even if it wouldn't happen, most men, I would imagine, I know myself, who has been in these type of abusive situations, knows, well, I can't do anything, because if I do, then depending on the person that it is, that could be what she wants, right? Even if I just go, stop, it could be like, you just put your hands on me, I'm calling the cops, and automatically, when the police show up, most of the time, it goes straight to the dude. And a lot of times it is dudes abusing. But women are abusive as well, physically and mentally in relationships. And just because a guy is bigger and stronger technically than a woman does not mean that men don't get abused too. And people don't talk about that. They want to write it off because, oh, well, how could like a little 5 foot something person abuse somebody who's bigger and stronger than them? It happens all the time, actually. And how could it happen? Is because there are mentally abusive people, there are physically abusive people that are with people who usually don't resort to violence in relationships, and who will allow things to be said to them that will beat them down to where they're not confident, they're insecure, they're scared to leave, they've got their own trauma, and they'll stick around. So there's that. And then also people are like, well, if it's been like this, why doesn't he leave? Would you ever say that to a woman who's been with a dude that's abusing them? Would you ever be like, why didn't you leave? No, because most people understand, well, you were probably scared to leave. Fear is not an emotion that knows gender. People can be scared no matter what. And if you're a dude, a very confident guy, if you're a strong guy, whatever, you may love someone who is physically and mentally beating you down, and you're scared to leave for whatever reason. There's all types of reasons. But it works the same. So no, I can understand why he would stay. Why would he film it? Maybe because he wanted proof to show the courts. Maybe because he's an a-hole and he wanted to release it to TMZ, which I don't know if he did or not, but sure, maybe. That's not the point. Because the Taylor Frankie Lautner, or whatever her name is, she hasn't really like said, hey, yeah, my behavior was bad. I am going to seek help for the way that I act out. And I'm ashamed, etc. No, all she's done is act like the victim. And a lot of people are co-signing for her. It's really frustrating because no, you were the aggressor. Also, she has like a domestic violence case from before this one that she was already on probation for. And then from what I understand, there's a third domestic violence case that she's being investigated for. So the only consistent thing that I see with this whole situation is Taylor Frankie Lautner is abusive. There's truth and consistency. The only consistent thing that I know is that she's got at least 2 domestic violence cases and maybe one more. To me, that says somebody's abusive. And other people are online, I've seen people saying that it was reactive abuse. And that also annoys me because, no. She admitted in her first domestic violence thing that she was the aggressor. In the video with her boyfriend, maybe he could also be much like her, but in the video that came out of her being abusive, he's calm and he's trying to stop her. Doesn't have the signs of reactive abuse, which is being thrown around on the internet a lot from people who see people on TikTok talking about reactive abuse and then don't actually take the time to figure out exactly what reactive abuse is. and then all of a sudden also say that reactive abuse is okay. No, reactive abuse is when somebody has had enough of being abused and then they act out and they lash out. Those instances are usually very short bursts, and they can be very bad, yes. And it's usually followed by an intense amount of guilt, sadness, shame for what you've done, because you're used to taking it. So you're the type of person that if you are being abused, if you even say, don't talk to me like that, and it causes an argument, inside you're like, I shouldn't have said that because this whole thing fell apart because of me. But reactive abuse is a real thing. But notice the word in reactive abuse. It's still abuse. The key is to realize that you're in a situation that abuse is happening so that you don't become a reactive abuser and you leave it, right? Sadly, it's a tough reality that a lot of people don't get out of that, so reactive abuse is a thing. But what was going on in that video? Not reactive abuse at all. What has gone on in the previous domestic violence thing? Not reactive abuse at all, because she admitted to being the aggressor. So I wish people on the internet would learn a little bit more about these terms that they like to throw around when it comes to mental health, because a lot of the times just not hitting the mark. Okay, so throw that out the window. That was annoying. Also, another thing that is annoying is that her whole attitude about the whole thing has been that she's a victim. Not saying anything like, he hit me and beat me up, so I was reacting to that. Because she can't legally say that, I'm sure, because that's not what happened. She's playing the victim, saying that, well, if this wouldn't have come out, Bachelorette wouldn't have been canceled. You know, I got haters. My life is so hard now. You did that to yourself by being abusive to your partner. That's not owning it. That's playing a victim so that people will feel bad for you. And the number one ultimate thing that pisses me off about this whole situation, other than this Taylor Frankie Paul Muniz, or whatever her name is, posting videos on social media with little voiceovers and dance crazes, being like, oh, another instance with haters, blah, 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 all that type of stuff, is the quote that I saw the other day, where she said that because of this, she feels bad because her daughter, the one that got hit in the stool, that her mother threw, her daughter has to relive the trauma of that when she's done so much work with her to get past it. And that her son, who's like 1 or 2 years old, his birthday was taken from him because all this happened on his birthday. Let's think about that. Let's think about that statement for a second, okay? She's a narcissist, and she's an abuser. And those poor kids are also being abused. If not physically, at least emotionally. And I'm saying that because of that quote. Because let's take that apart real quick. From somebody who does understand a lot about mental health and has done the work since basically kindergarten and still does the work today. And I always will. Let's look at that sentence real quick, okay? Because I was raised in a narcissistic, abusive household. And throughout my life, the relationships that I got into until I realized why I was there were narcissistic, abusive relationships. And like I said, I wasn't the aggressor or the abuser, but I was the enabler. And I learned why I was there, and now I will never be back there, thank goodness. But I'll tell you why this quote proves that she's emotionally abusive, at least to her children, and that she is narcissistic. Because her daughter is 8 years old. That is a very traumatic experience, being hit in the head with a stool by a drunk mom who's being abusive to her boyfriend. Very, very traumatic experience, for sure. her daughter has to relive the trauma because this news came out. Let's think about that for just a second. Her daughter is 8. How is her daughter knowing that this news came out? Is her daughter on TikTok? Is her daughter listening to the gossip bloggers that are out there? Is her daughter on TMZ? Is her daughter watching the video? Somebody emailing it to her daughter? Was her daughter at work and like it was water cooler talk? No. Her daughter is 8 years old. Her mom, as an adult, doesn't need to tell her that all this is going on. But, according to that quote, she decided to let this poor 8-year-old know that all this news is back out there and this video has resurfaced. And in the quote that I saw, here, I'll read the quote just so I make sure I get it right. It says, "Worst part is my daughter having to relive and see it all over again, years later after extensive work with her." See it all over again? In other words, if she's 8, either she found a way to get the video herself and was on the gossip blogs, like I said. Somebody at her school showed it to her, maybe, but probably not since they're 8. Or her mom showed it to her again. Most likely to go, look at how the world is beating up on mommy. Instead of not showing it to her, dealing with your stuff yourself, dealing in the adult world with the consequences of your actions, and then putting that aside to let your daughter be an 8-year-old. But here's what narcissists do. Because they need a source to feed them, and they need people to feel bad for them, and they need to be victims. So, this is all theoretical right now, of course, but based on that quote, that her 8-year-old daughter had to relive it and see it again, I'm sure Taylor Frankie Paul, whatever, was in a terrible mood, sad, moping around, whatever the mood is, obviously something that would let the daughter know things are bad right now for mommy. And then probably show her the internet stuff and be like, look what they're saying about me. I'm so sorry that you have to watch this video again. I'm so sorry that you have to relive this trauma because everybody's being mean to mommy. You realize what that does? Maybe not. She just involved her daughter into the adult world, having to consume this stuff, which she doesn't even understand. Not only that, but she's telling her daughter, like, again, this is all theoretical, but based off of everything that I've heard and seen, probably pretty true. She's telling her daughter that she should feel bad for her mommy because she's being victimized by the world, instead of having a conversation of, she shouldn't even have the conversation. She's 8. You can wait on that. But if you did, having a conversation of, I did this, you know that I feel bad about it, and it's just been very hard to deal with because I'm having to relive the situation that I feel terrible about, and I'm so sorry that I did that to you. Instead, she's telling her daughter how she feels. Because an 8-year-old doesn't know well enough to go, oh my goodness, I'm reliving the trauma again. 8-year-olds don't do that. You know who does that? Adults. So she's telling probably an 8-year-old, isn't this sad? You're having to relive the trauma because all these people are being mean to your mom. So now the 8-year-old isn't even concerned about herself at all. She's reliving trauma, I guess, in her head because she's 8 and doesn't even really understand what that means. And now she's got to take care of her mom's feelings because mommy is sad. So the 8-year-old only knows what mom has just told her. Wow, this is bad. People are being mean to mom. I'm reliving trauma. They're also being mean to me. My mom is sad. I need to make her feel better. That 8-year-old is no longer allowed to have feelings of their own. And they're also very confused, trying to figure out what's going on. And not only that, but they're learning that they have to comfort their mom when their mom is the adult. Let's go on to the rest of the quote, shall we? It says, and she says that she's sad and apologizes. Oh, she apologizes to the daughter anyway. And my baby boy's birthday was taken from him, because I guess the news came out when it was his birthday. My baby's boy's birthday was taken from him. Let's see. Let's think about that. He's like 1 or 2 years old, something like that. He's 1 or 2 years old. How would he know? Oh, I know how he would know. Because a narcissist would be very sad on his birthday and not even be able to celebrate it with a 1 or 2 year old, and I don't have kids yet, and I think 1 or 2 year old, I think they kind of like talk and stuff, like they can kind of understand that it's their birthday, I think, but anyway, a narcissist would be very sad. There would be a terrible mood over the whole thing, and they would again tell the child, I'm so sorry that your birthday's this way and that it's been taken from you. Because a 1 or 2 year old definitely doesn't know that their birthday's been taken to them by TMZ. Or taken from them by TMZ, do they? No, they don't. So a narcissist and someone who doesn't care about anybody but themselves would tell a 1 or 2 year old, wow, this is really sad. Your birthday is ruined because look at all these people being mean to mommy. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Also, mommy is very sad. Come here and give mommy a hug. Forget about your birthday that you didn't even know was ruined because you're 1 or 2, but let's talk about the fact that it's ruined. That we're not doing really anything on your birthday other than mom's either raging or crying in her bed, and she just needs you to hug her to make her feel better. So forget about your birthday. Put that aside. Hug your mom because she's an abusive a-hole. That quote right there is really all the proof I need to say that, you know what? I hope that those kids do get the help that they deserve. And I hope that she gets the help she deserves someday. But from the way that she's acting online, probably not, because there's no ownership of her actions. The truth to that quote, worst part is my daughter having to relive and see it all over again years later after extensive work with her and apologies to her about that night and my baby boy's birthday was taken from him. Worst part about that quote right there, it's all about other people. Nowhere in there does it say, man, because of my actions, the internet is mad at me and The Bachelorette got canceled. And people know who I really am now. I wish I wouldn't have done that because I also feel bad for throwing a stool and hitting my daughter. That's terrible. I'm going to go get help with my drinking and my anger and try to figure out what's going on inside me. None of that. Nothing about her at all. All about the way this has affected the kids. She affected the kids with her actions and with quotes like that. It's all her doing. Just don't be abusive, sucker. That's all you got to do. Be a good person. Be a good parent. Be an adult. But obviously she doesn't feel that way. So, yeah, that's about it. That's what's bugging me this week.